Ooh, that's loud. Okay, so that's a quote, isn't it? It's pretty interesting. It may fall on your heart a lot of different ways. But if we let it sink in, it's the idea that, we may think, hey, we've got the Bible right. But if we don't do it in love, we're wrong. And what does that look like? And so as we go about today, that's kind of a thought that I want to have planted as we're moving throughout. Because if love is one thing that we constantly see in Scripture. We constantly see it, and Jesus modeled it. Now, as we begin, I want to share a story. So about 2 weeks ago, my sister and I had the chance to go to Cozumel. And when we were in Cozumel, we booked this third-party excursion. And on this excursion, we didn't know anything about it, except we were supposed to meet at a 7-Eleven once we get out of the port. And we're like, And my dad's like, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. McKenna are like, we're going to do it. Well, we walk out, and I see a guy, and we say, hi, my name is Trip. Are you with this excursion? He says, yeah. Come this way, behind the gas station. Oh, Lord. So now we're walking back, and we're going back, and it's like, well, when in Mexico, right? I guess. I don't know. And so in doing so, he's like, hey, here's the keys to a Jeep. And we're like, I get to drive a Jeep? All right, this is great. This is the greatest idea ever. And so as we're going, we end up, fast forward a little bit, we are going down this dirt road. Now, this is a dirt road, I think, designed for the Jeep that I was in. It was like you're driving like this, and you're all hitting, and like I'm going maybe 5 miles per hour. If my car would have bottomed out, like I would have never made it. But this Jeep was like God's blessing to us. It was great. Well, as we're going, and then we park, and we're probably going like 10 minutes through the woods, and we come to this area, and we have no idea what we're doing. We just know we're going to do it. And then we're confronted with something that looks like this. Now, if you can't see it, this is a cave. It's a cave. I don't know if you can see it's a cave. But if you look a little bit closer, on the right side, all those black things are bats. There are bats everywhere in this cave. And on the left side was an area, you can actually see our tour guide's feet. My feet are not there yet. I'm kind of like off on the edge, and says, hey, do you want to jump into this bat cave? And I'm like, do I want to jump into the bat cave? And if you look, you cannot see the bottom. You don't know how deep it is. And you see all those things floating? Well, bats have to let go of stuff. And so you have all this bat droppings everywhere. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And then I jump in, and I come out alive. And I'm like, McKenna, we're doing it. And she's like, no, we're not. Because where she's at, she's back on this side, the left picture. And I jumped in. It's probably about as deep as it is tall up to the ledge. And you can see us, it's probably, 12-foot drop. I don't know. Well, we get up there. I said, McKenna, we're going to do it. And she's like, no, I don't know. I ain't doing it. And I'm like, come on. So we walk up there, and then I said, okay, hold my hand, and we're going to jump in together. I held her hand, and as I jumped, I kind of pulled. But pulling in love, of course. We both go in, and there's a video of us, and we're just like trying to hold your breath because you know what's in the water, but like you're getting in the water, and then we come out, and I'm like, that was awesome. And she's like, I'm done. Like, you're welcome, I love you, but like never again. I'm like, hey, we did it once, and it was good. And so like the moral of that story is we've got to do life with people. You do life with people, you have to walk with them. And in this Christian journey, you are signing up to walk alongside people, plain and simple. If you're not willing to do it with them, if you're not willing to jump into poopy water of bats with them, then don't do it. Just don't. But there is, where do we go from here? Oops, my bad. Where do we go from here? There is some advice from a missionary. I was reading a book while in grad school, and they interviewed several different people. And this missionary said, in 25 years of working, I think it was in Hong Kong, they said, if you're going to tell someone about Jesus, you better be willing to give up your own bed. Because when you invite someone into the family of God, you're inviting them into your own home. And they said, like, for real though, if you're going to say, hey, there's this guy named Jesus, you should know him, you should come to church, and they don't have a place to stay, you better get off of your own bed and let them have your bed. And if you're not comfortable giving up your bed, then don't tell them about Jesus, because the two have to match. And then, I mean, reflection, that's hard. Like, it's one thing to donate something to somebody. It's another to give them your time, to give them a couch. But say there is no couch, say there is no space, and the only space left is your bed. Are you willing to give it up? Because I'm pretty sure Jesus would have. And that's the model that we're trying to look at. But if broken people come into our community, they should never want to leave. They should not want to leave. Now, brokenness comes in all shapes and sizes. I think it's safe to say we've probably all been broken on one level or another. Anybody not broken? Any volunteers? We've all been broken at different times. Yet, sometimes our assemblies, and I'm not talking about us in general, I'm just speaking more like in general terms, or us specifically, is we look more like a hospital for saints and a graveyard for sinners. They come in here, they open up what they're struggling with, get away. Yeah, we don't do that. We don't allow that in our church. Oh, you're struggling, you're dealing with that, yeah, get out. Is sometimes the way in which we can treat people. That's a common cause of people saying, hey, why don't you want to go to church? Oh, I'm going to be judged. They're not going to love me. They're not going to accept me. Yet, as we'll see, that wasn't necessarily the case with Jesus. And so, as you're thinking about your own life, as you're thinking about your involvement with this body, or whatever body you're a part of, thinking, if someone is broken of any sort, when they come in and they interact with me, when they interact with us, are they going to feel like they have a home that they never want to leave, or are they going to go find it somewhere else? Because most people, all people, we want community. We want to be loved. We want to be accepted. But then are we getting the acceptance from Christians? Or are we getting it from the very people who are doing the very thing that we're struggling with? You're going to find it. Just where are they going to find that community? And hopefully, it's with us. And so, again, I'm bringing some of this to our attention just to pause, to think. How am I doing in my own life? When someone has something, am I quick to say, stop, don't do it? Or am I, how about this? Our truth won't be heard until our grace is felt. Going back to the very, very beginning, the very first slide I had, it said, you can get the Bible right, but if you get love wrong, you're wrong. And if we have this truth that has been unveiled and we've seen it through Christ, yet we're not doing so in love and compassion, it's going to fall on deaf ears. I mean, you can't really beat the Bible into somebody. You could try. It might work. It might, but probably not. It's this idea that we've got to have grace. Or as I tell my students, grace and patience. You've got to have some grace and patience with people because it didn't get there overnight. It's not going to fix overnight. And if we're honest, no one in here is perfect. We're all going through different struggles. And so it makes me think of, there's a guy once said, and here's what he said. I needed a Christian who desired to know me and who had the humility to admit that they didn't have it all figured out. There's been several times in my life where someone says, hey, Tripp, this is going on, and I had the answer. I knew how to fix it. I wanted to fix it, and that got me nowhere. If anything, they got more upset at me, and I was like, oh, yeah, I messed up. And sometimes like, hey, do you want my advice? You want me to listen? What do you want me to do? Like, I don't even know. And sometimes say, hey, just listen. I don't want. Like, who in here likes to vent sometimes? And then when you're done venting, yeah, I'm better. I'm good. It's all right. And it's like, you were just upset. You were just super angry. You complained for 5 minutes, and now you're okay? It's like, yeah, I'm okay. And we have to remember that as people are joining our body, as they're joining our fellowship, sometimes they just need a place to vent. They don't need you to fix everything. They just need to know it's like, hey, okay, you're struggling with this. Let's figure out what God has to say with it together. Versus, well, in 2 Corinthians, this is what it says. Oh, yeah, if you're not doing that, get out. Like, I'm not saying we're doing that, but we have to be mindful that when we are interacting with anybody in life, it's more about doing life with them, holding their hand, and saying, hey, I'm in this with you. You feel me a little bit? Now, how up top, we're not called to know it all. Yet, oftentimes, we like to know it all. Anybody like to know it all? We think, oh, yeah, I got it all together. I'm good. I got no problems. And so if you have a problem or you're struggling with something, are you more likely to go to the person who knows everything, who has all the answers, and I got it all, I know it all? Or the person who's saying, hey, look, been there, done that, I'm struggling too. Let's do this together. Let's figure it out together. And if you're more apt to go to the person who's willing to be vulnerable, where do you think someone who has no connection, no church family, or who has no idea about this guy named Jesus? Because honestly, if you're a Christian, you're the Jesus they're going to meet. Just are they going to meet the loving Jesus or the Jesus that's not Jesus at all? And so there's an idea of it's far too easy to dismiss the struggles of others, especially if we don't face the same struggles ourselves. Oh yeah, you should, no, get rid of that. Like, I don't struggle with that. You shouldn't struggle with that. Anybody? Yeah, like we've done that. We think that. We may not even admit it, but like we usually are very quick to judge somebody. Oh, you need to fix that. But we've never dealt with it ourselves. Yet when we've struggled with something ourselves, and then we meet someone who's doing the same thing, it's like, hey, I got you. Like, yeah, you're in for the long haul. Like they're saying, like it talks about having that thorn in your side, maybe your entire life. That thorn might be there your entire life. But if you've never experienced that thorn, how do you know the agony? But then on the flip side, going back to the other idea, is if you never share the things that you're going through, if no one knows anything about your testimony or what you've been through, how on earth are they going to be able to read your mind? They have no idea what you've gone through. They have no idea to turn to you because, oh, well, you would never know. And then all of a sudden, you're sharing that, and someone's like, actually, I do know. And you're like, what? You know that? And we're like, you too? I had no idea. I've known you for 25 years, and you deal with that too? Yeah, I just didn't want to tell anybody. And then all of a sudden, like, the relationships form, or they grow, or they deepen so much quicker. And then you see the Spirit manifest in a way that, quite honestly, maybe has never manifested. And so we've got to be mindful of what this is telling us, is don't be so quick to say, hey, you've got to fix that. You've got to change that. I'm not saying don't hold them accountable. I'm not saying that at all. But then, especially when you haven't struggled with it, maybe you're not the right person to walk with them on that journey. Maybe you are. Maybe you are. But then if you know another Christian who is faithful and true, and that's something they do, maybe you invite them into the relationship through trust. I mean, not saying, oh, hey, by the way, this person, like, I'm going to tell all their secrets. No, because, I mean, there's the confidence. But then this idea of, well, hey, here they're at. So Jesus was against many things. We know that. But he had a reputation for being for people, or being for people. Jesus was for the people. Now, that doesn't mean, like, so Jesus had a clear ethical stance. We knew what he was for. We knew what he was against. And yet those found guilty by his words, they flocked to him. He wasn't pro-sin. He wasn't pro-tax collecting. I mean, if you can find anywhere in Scripture where Jesus was like, sin, 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 or extortion, take their money. Please, raise your hand, show me. It's not there. Yet, Jesus, I mean, could you imagine? Jesus is here preaching words about how, like, hey, this is wrong. And they're like, tell me more. That's me, tell me more. Like, and they're drawn to his words. And so, reflection in our own lives, when we speak truth, because again, biblical truth is important. That's why we come together. That's why we have the Bible. Like, it's important. But if we don't do it in love, is it going to be received? And somehow, Jesus was able to preach and teach his, like, radically black and white, like, hey, you don't do this, you do this. Like, and yet people still said, like, hey, I want to join. How can I be a part of this? I want to follow you. And I think about my life. People don't tell me their stuff half the time. Maybe they don't tell you half the stuff because maybe they fear that you're going to judge them, or they're going to fear that as soon as they're exposed, they're going to back up. They're going to say, oh, yep, I can't open my mouth in small group because I'm going to be viewed differently. You don't have to raise your hand, but I would take a guess that there's been lots of times you've wanted to share something. You've wanted to be vulnerable and to express something, but you're like, I can't share it because if they knew, they wouldn't fill in the blank. They wouldn't love me the same. They wouldn't view me the same. So there's a few scriptures I want to look at. So in Luke 15, 1 through 2, it says, now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering to hear Jesus. Again, he was not pro-tax collecting. He wasn't pro-sinning. But the Pharisees and teachers of the law muttered, this man welcomes the sinners and eats with them. Oh my gosh, look at him. He's with the wrong people. And Jesus over here having a good time. Like, I mean, we know he's against it, but then the Pharisees, the people who are trying to follow the book, and I mean, hey, they get a bad rap. We've said this many times. The Pharisees, they were trying to do the right thing. They were just sometimes getting caught up in stuff and not seeing the bigger picture, or thought they were seeing the bigger picture because they were the know-it-all. Hey, I know it all. I know it all. I know what I'm supposed to do. I studied Torah. I followed a rabbi. I know what I'm doing. I've been in church for 25 years. I've been a Christian for 50 years. I know the Bible. You can't tell me otherwise. I know it. Yet, oftentimes when we're open to things, we read a scripture again, and then we're like, man, I've read that scripture 1,000 times, and I've never really realized it like that. And you're just kind of a little bit mind blown. And so I highlighted, this man welcomes sinners and eats with them. Or if we look at Luke 19, 1 through 6, it says, Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. So he's just walking on through. Y'all know this story. There was a man by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector. So he's the boss. I mean, everybody knows him. They're like, oh, Zacchaeus is coming, run away. He wants my money. Like, have a nobody's home kind of sign. Like, you just keep trying to run away. Like, oh, nope, we're closed. We're not here. And so, but this man who knows Jesus stands a certain way, he wanted to see Jesus, who was there. Or he wanted to see who Jesus was. But because he was short, what is he? A wee little man. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him. Since Jesus was coming that way, now, when Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, hey, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today. Now, pause. I mean, you know what's about to happen. You know what's going to happen. So he came down at once and said, hey, let's go, Jesus, yeah. You're like Mr. Popular. Now, I don't know if he knew to the full extent who Jesus was. I mean, this is what I'm reading. You're reading the exact same thing. It could have been that he knew Jesus was this crazy prophet. That he could have, hey, Jesus is popular. He's in with the people. Maybe I can get more money from these people if I get in with Jesus. If I'm cool with Jesus, people aren't going to hate me anymore. I have no idea. I mean, I don't know. But there's a lot of things that could have come. But then all of a sudden, very bottom, all the people saw this and began to mutter, he has gone to be the guest of a sinner. Again, this man. And again, they're looking at Jesus of being with sinners. But if we have to remember, he had a clear ethical stance. He never blurred the lines of trying to justify sin. Yet those who were condemned by his words flocked to him. Now, here's a story about a leper. And it says, oh, that must have been me. Must have clicked the button. I'll fix it real quick. So with the leper, you'll get the idea. That's in, if you want to go ahead and turn to Luke 5. And in Luke 5, it is verse, I think, 12 and 13. Is that what I had? Let's see. So Luke 5, 12 through 13. It says, while Jesus was in one of the towns, a man came along who was covered with leprosy. When he saw Jesus, he fell with his face to the ground and begged him, Lord, if you are willing, can you make me clean? Jesus then reached out his hand, touched the man. I am willing, he said, be clean. And immediately the leprosy left him. Now, if you had the option to go to the movies and watch a movie, or just read the manuscript. Now, I'm not talking about the book. I'm talking about like the manuscript for the movie. Would you rather watch the or read the manuscript or watch the movie? You're probably going to choose watch the movie. Now, I told the teens earlier, I said I wasn't going to say the book because people are like, oh, I want the book. The book's much better, which, yeah, it is. But you have the idea of sometimes we read stuff and we miss things. That's why we have Bible studies. That's why we have sermons. It's a time to look at a scripture and say, hey, what are we missing? Or what's the idea? Because if you read over it very quickly, you can miss it. And so what we're about to do is we're about to do a little bit of acting to show some life to this passage. Are you ready? So without further ado, y'all come up. Yeah, come up. If I had a little clip thing, I'd be like, action. So, action.
Help me.
I got you, Jesus.
Help me.
Back up! Back up! You're away! Back up! It's okay.
I'm healed. It's a miracle.
All right, thank y'all. So, I know it's a little silly. But think about it. You have a leper. Like, no one wanted lepers. Lepers are gross. They're the untouchables. They're outside of the city. Like, you did not want leprosy. You saw some of them like covering themselves. They're like, I can't breathe it. If I breathe it, I'm going to die. Like, you have this notion that there is this person. Now, it's kind of funny to think, like, here we have the Son of God walking. The Son of God. Like, Jesus is the Son of God. And then all of a sudden, back up. Don't go near him. And it's like, but if he's Jesus, he could take care of himself. I'm pretty sure Jesus could, like, say, like, poof, go away. Like, or cause him to build, like, a force field. Like, if Jesus really, really wanted to, and then all of a sudden, Jesus goes, he heals the leper, and then his disciples are probably like, what did we just see? Oh my gosh. And I would guess they're probably like, just like, or because if they weren't like, then why on earth would they try to maybe protect him? Now, we don't know that. We're adding into the lines. We're making the movie come to life. But how often are we like that? Back up, like, hey, you've got too much mess. Like, fix yourself a little bit. We don't want someone who is, oh, you're too open about your sin. You are too open about your sin. You need to get out of our building. Or you need to zip your lips and just shut up and listen. I mean, a little bit, yeah, kind of. We sometimes get judgmental and we want to protect Jesus. Oh, you can't come into the church building. Like, we don't need you. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, if Jesus was here, the people that he'd have in his church building, it would probably blow some mind. Maybe not y'all, because we are very open and loving. But, like, it would have blown my mind. It would probably still blow my mind walking into church one day and you're seeing all these people that like you just saw doing something last Friday night or on the weekend or on a light that's red on a street corner, and you're like, oh, where are you from? What? Like, you know where they just were? And Jesus is like, yeah, but I'm still called to love them. I'm still called to fill in the blank. And so a thought that I kind of want to leave you with was Jesus was building an upside-down kingdom. Outcasts had their feet washed. The marginalized are welcomed. Truth is upheld, celebrated, and proclaimed. And those who fall short of the truth are loved. And if we're not mirroring that, are we really a part of God's kingdom? And again, I'm not trying to step on toes. And if I am, well, you don't have to hear me preach for a long time. But the idea that we are, it's rough. It gets dirty. It's not clean cut. We're broken, but we're broken together, and we're also unified through Christ, and we're healed, and we're washed clean. And that is how, when people walk in here, or when they meet you, do they find someone who's like, hey, you're a part of my family. Come and live at my house. Have this spare bedroom. You're not going anywhere. Or, hey, good luck. You got this. Yeah, just good luck. Here's $20. Leave me alone. Salvation Army's down the street. Which there are great organizations in the town to help, and that's many reasons why, but where are we at? And so as you kind of do some reflection, because ultimately you're probably not going to remember what I talked about in 24 hours, maybe even 5 minutes, because we go through in life, and we have work, and we have school, and we have jobs, and we have families. But just be aware. Be aware. Would the disciple be wrong for trying to protect Jesus? No, that's a gut instinct. We make judgments every single day. I thought about wearing shorts and a t-shirt up here, and I knew you'd judge me differently. I thought about doing a lot of different things because you would judge me differently based off how I act. If I got up and said, well, I have my master's from ACU, which is true. Oh, well, he has his master's of theology. I must be listening. Or if I said, well, yeah, I just did this last night, you'd be like, oh my gosh, you did that last night. Like, we make judgments, but then once we recognize those judgments, we see them. It's then up to us to figure out, what are we going to do with that? Are we going to let that be the label that defines them? Or are we going to say, you know what? I'm going to pause. Same way with like our emotions. It's okay to feel the way you're feeling. But then you get to choose how are you going to act out on that feeling. That makes sense? And so the same thing applies, is when we are interacting with people who may be struggling with something different, who may be having a different stage of life, how are we greeting them? Are we greeting them with love? Love that has a strong ethical stance, or are we meeting them with maybe a chastising rod and saying, get out? Thank you very much. Have a blessed day.